there would be a knock at the door, and I would arise at midnight and go to the shop, where people would hear me hammering sepulchral boards and tacking satin. And often I wonder who would go with me to the distant land. Our name's the theme, for talk in the same week, for I observed. Two always went together. Chase Henry was paired with Edith Conant, Jonathan Summers with Willie Metcalf, and Editor Hamlin with Francis Turner when he prayed to live longer than Editor Whedon, and Thomas Rose with Widow McFarlane, Emily Sparks with Barry Holden, Oscar Hummel with Davis Matlock, Editor Whedon with Fiddler Jones, and Faith Mahaney with Dorcas Gustine. And I, the solemnest man in town, stepped off of Daisy Fraser.
I am Minerva, poetess of the village, hooted at, jeered at by the yahoos of the street for my heavy body, cock eye, and rolling walk. And all the more when Butch Weldy captured me after a brutal hunt. He left me to my fate with Dr. Myers, and I sank into death, growing numb from the feet up, like one stepping deeper and deeper into a stream of ice. Will someone go to the village newspaper and gather into a book the verses I wrote? How I thirsted for love, how I hungered for life.
In life, I was Isa Nutter. Doc Myers said I had satyriasis, and Doc Hill called it leukemia, but none of that. I was 64, strong as a man of 35 or 40, and it wasn't writing a letter every day. And it wasn't working late hours, 7 nights a week. And it wasn't the strain of thinking of Minnie, or a fear, or a jealous dread, or the strain of trying to fathom her wonderful mind, nor was it sympathy for the dreadful life she had with her first and second husband. It was none of those things that laid me low. It was the clamor of daughters and the threats of sons and the sneers and curses of all my kin. Right up to the day I snuck off to Peoria and married Minnie in spite of them all. And you wonder why my will was made to this best and most perfect of women?
Dust of my dust, and dust with my dust. Oh, child who died as you entered the world, dead with my death. Never knowing breath, though you tried so hard, with a heart that beat when you lived with me, and stopped when you left me for life. It is well, my child, for you never traveled the long way that begins with school days, when little fingers blur under the tears that fall on the crooked letters, or the earliest wound when a little mate leaves you alone for another, and sickness, and the face of fear by the bed, the death of a father or mother, or shame for them, poverty. The maiden sorrow of school days ended, an eyeless nature that makes you drink from the cup of love, though you know it's poisoned. To whom would your flower face have been lifted? Botanist? Weakling? Cry of what blood to yours? Pure or foul, for it makes no matter, it's blood that calls to our blood. And then your children, oh, what might they be? And your sorrow. Child, death is better than life.
After I attended lectures at our Chautauqua and studied French for 20 years, committing the grammar almost by heart, I thought I'd take a trip to Paris to give my culture a final polish. So I went to Peoria for a passport. Thomas Rhodes was on the train that morning. And there, the clerk of the district court made me swear to support and defend the Constitution. Yes, even me, who can't defend or support it at all. And what do you think? That very morning, the federal judge in the very next room to the room that I took the oath in decided the Constitution exempted Rhodes from paying taxes for the waterworks at Spoon River.
Do you think that odes and sermons and the ringing of church bells and the blood of old men and young men martyred for the truth they saw, with eyes made bright by faith in God, accomplished the world's great reformations? Do you think the battle hymn of the Republic would have been heard if the chattel slave had crowned the dominant dollar in spite of Whitney's cotton gin and steam and rolling mills and iron and telegraphs and white free labor? Do you think that Daisy Fraser had been put out and driven out if the canning works had never needed her little house and lot? Or do you think that the poker room of Johnny Taylor and Burchard's bar had been closed if the money lost had been spent for beer and not been turned? Or been sold to Thomas Rhodes for larger sales of shoes and blankets and children's cloaks and gold oak cradles? Why? A moral truth is a hollow tooth, which must be propped with gold.
Over and over, they used to ask me, while buying the wine or the beer in Peoria first, later in Chicago, Denver, Frisco, New York, quite wherever I lived. How I led the life and what was the start of it. Well, I told them of a silk dress and oh, the promise of marriage from a rich man. It was Lucius Atherton. But that was not really it at all. Suppose a boy steals an apple from the tray at the grocery store, and they all begin to call him a thief. Editor, minister, judge, all the people, a thief, a thief, a thief wherever he goes, and he cannot get work, and he cannot get bread without stealing it. Why? The boy will steal. It is the way people regard the theft of the apple that makes the boy what he is. Oh.
I was the laughingstock of the village. Chiefly of the people of good sense, as they called themselves. Also of the learned, like Reverend Pete, who read Greek the same as English. For instead of talking of free trade or preaching some sort of baptism, instead of believing in the efficacy of walking cracks, picking up pins the right way, seeing the new moon over the right shoulder, or curing rheumatism with blue glass, I asserted the sovereignty of my own soul. Before Mary Baker G. Eddy even got started with what she called science, I had mastered the Bhagavad Gita and cured my soul. Before Mary began to cure bodies with souls, peace to all worlds.
No other man, unless it was Doc Hill, did more for the people of this town than I. All the weak, the halt, the impoverished, and those who could not pay flocked to me. I was good-hearted, easy, Dr. Myers. Healthy, happy, and comfortable fortune. Blessed with a congenial mate. My children raised, all wedded, doing well in the world. Then, one night, Minerva, the poetess, came to me in her troubles, crying. I tried to help her out. She died. They indicted me. The newspapers disgraced me. My wife perished of a broken heart, and pneumonia finished me.
Spring and summer, fall and winter and spring, after each other, drifting past my window, drifting, as I lay for so many years watching them drift. Counting the years till a terror touches my heart at times, with the feeling that I've become eternal. At last, my 100th birthday is reached. And still I lay, hearing the tick of the clock, the low of the cattle, the scream of the jays as they fly under the falling leaves, day after day, alone in a room, in a house of a daughter-in-law, stricken with age and gray. By night, or through the window by day, my mind runs back, it seems, to infinite times, to North Carolina, all my girlhood days, and my John, gone away to the war with the British, all of the children, the death, all of the sorrow. That stretch of time, like a prairie in Illinois, over which great figures pass, like hurrying horsemen. Washington, Jefferson, Jackson, Webster, Clay, oh, beautiful young republic to whom my John and I gave all of our strength and love. And oh, my John, why, as I lay in bed helpless for years, praying for you to come, was your coming delayed? Seen that great cry of rapture that I uttered when you found me in old Virginia after the war? I cried when I beheld you there by the bed, the sun standing low in the west, growing smaller and fainter, the light of your face.
Very well, you liberals and navigators to realms intellectual, you sailors to heights inspirational, blown about by erratic currents, tumbled into air pockets, you Margaret Fuller Slacks, Pettits, Tennessee Claflin Shotes, you found, after all your boasted wisdom, how hard at the end it is to keep the soul from shattering into elemental atoms, while we, seekers after earth's treasures, getters and hoarders of gold, are self-contained, entire, harmonized, even to the last.
Where is my boy? My boy. In what far part of the world? The boy I loved most in school? I, the teacher, the old maid, the virgin heart, who made them all my children. Did I know my boy all right? Thinking of him as spirit aflame, active, ever aspiring. Oh, boy. Boy for whom I prayed and prayed many a watchful hour in the night. Do you remember the letter I wrote you of the beautiful love of Christ? And whether or not you ever took it, my boy, wherever you may be, work for your soul's sake, that all the clay of you, all the dross of you, may yield to the fire of you, until that fire is nothing but light. Nothing but light.
Oh, the dew-wet grass of the meadow in North Carolina through which Rebecca followed me. Wailing, wailing. One child in her arms and three that ran along, wailing, lengthening out the farewell to me off to war with the British. And the long hard years down to the day of Yorktown. And in my search for Rebecca, which brought me to Virginia. 2 children dead in the meanwhile. We went by oxen to Tennessee. Thence after years to Illinois, at last to Spoon River. We cut the buffalo grass, we felled the forest, built the schoolhouses, built the bridges, leveled the roads and tilled the fields. Alone with poverty, scourges and death. If Harry Wilmans, who fought the Filipinos, is to have a flag on his grave, take it from mine.
To be able to see every side of every question, to be on every side, to be everything, but to be nothing for long, to pervert the truth and ride it for a purpose, to use the great feelings and passions of the human family for base designs and cunning ends, to wear a mask like the Greek actors did. Your 8-page newspaper, behind which you huddle, bawling out through the megaphone of bold type, "This is I, the giant," thereby also living the life of the sneak thief, poisoned by the anonymous words of your clandestine soul, scratching dirt over scandal for money, and exhuming it again for vengeance, or to sell newspapers, crushing reputations and bodies, if needs be, to win at any cost, save your own life. Glorying in the demonic power, ditching civilization the way a paranoid boy does when he places a log on the railroad track and derails the express train. To be a newspaper editor, such as I was, and then to end up here, close by the river, near the place where the sewage from the village flows and the empty cans and garbage are dumped and the abortions are hidden.
At first, you'll not know what they mean, and you may never know, and we may never tell you, those sudden flashes in your soul, like lambent lightning on snowy clouds at midnight when the moon is full. They come in solitude, or perhaps you sit with a friend and all at once a silence falls on speech, and his eyes without flicker glow at you. You two have seen the secret together. He sees it in you, and you in him. And there you sit thrilling, lest the mystery stand before you and strike you dead with a shimmer like the sun's. Beware, all souls who have such visions, for your body's alive as mine is dead, for you are catching a whiff of the ether reserved for God himself.